Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, where today I'm going to take another look at a puzzle that we've been asked to solve by email. This is a puzzle from Niranjan, so thank you very much for sending it in. Apparently this is from the Diabolical Sudoku series in the Daily Telegraph. I don't know how old it is, but he mentions that basically he found this very, very hard and had to solve it by brute force and wondered whether there was any logical way through it. And the answer to that is I don't know yet, but we'll certainly have a look and see if we can spot something. So without further ado, let's go. I can place a 2 here, look, because of this 2, and this 2, and how they interact on this 3x3 block. So let's put that in. And something interesting in terms of column 3. We look at column 3 and how it interacts with this 3x3 block. You can see that the numbers 5 and 9 are not appearing yet in column 3, but we know that they have to go in there somewhere. So where can they go? Well, they can't go in any of these 3 positions. So they can only go in the 2 open positions. So sometimes I won't advise this notation, but this is such a powerful, I suppose, early deduction that I think we should just make it. And now we can obviously enter in the numbers 2, 3 and 4 into the column as well. And this 6 and 8 now. So let's have a look at that. Those are the only 2 positions left in this 3x3 block that the 6 and 8 can go into. So all of that means this must be a 7. And can I see anything else there? Yes I can, because actually if we now continue to look at the 3 central rows of the grid, and we've got this 1, 1 here, so we know there's a 1 in one of those 2 positions, and 2 5s here, so we know that there's 5s in those positions. So now we have a 1 5 pair in the central row, and we've still got to place the numbers 2, 3 and 4. So 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. 3 and 4 in column 7 here, so this one can only be a 2. Let's put that in. Eliminate the 2 there, eliminate the 2 there. Now, what next? Well, we can do the same trick with, we did the trick with the 5 over here, and the 5 and the 9. I was checking whether we could do something similar over here. We can't do something exactly the same, but this 5 here is powerful because look, that means that the 5 in column 7 is limited to exactly the same rows as the 5 was locked in column 3. Now, what does this mean? This means we have our old friend the X-wing. So, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is I'll add some highlighting at the end of the video, but we know that the arrangement of 5s now will either be a 5 here and a 5 here, or a 5 here and a 5 here in the finished solution. Now that's very powerful because that means that now we can take a look more closely at row 3 and row 7, and we know there are no more 5s in these rows, i.e. the 5 will either be here or here or here and here. So specifically, you know, you can't have a 5 here, 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 or here, looking at row 7. Now I just want to take a stare at this for a minute, because this is such an odd arrangement of 5s around the grid that I'm wondering whether there's something more we can do with that. Might have to excuse the baby monitor here. My son is chuntering away. What can we do with this? Well, we have our old friend the Skyscraper here, do we? Yes, we do. Now this is a lovely example actually. I don't know whether it will help us get any numbers, but the presence of this X-wing and what it does in terms of eliminating 5s along these rows, we need to study quite hard, because it interacts very powerfully with this 5 here. So we now know, for example, that if we look at column 8, where can we place a 5 in column 8? Well, one possibility would be here, if this 5 isn't correct. But where else can we place a 5? Well, we can no longer place one here, because we know that the xwing rules that out. We can't have a 5 here because of this 5, and we can't have a 5 here because of this 5, and we can't have a 5 here because of the xwing. So there are two positions that a 5 can go in column 8. Now, let's have a look now, I think, at column 5 and ask where a 5 can go in column 5. We can have one there, but the xwing rules out the 5 from this position. We have a 1-5 pair in this central 3x3 block from our earlier work, so we know there's no 5 here and there's no 5 here, and there's no 5 here because of the xwing. So the positions for the 5s now are locked in terms of these two columns into these 4 specific squares, and this is called a skyscraper, and this is the classic example of a skyscraper because it's happening in the columns. So the idea is, I might add some highlighting here as well, that it sort of resembles a skyscraper. I mean, I'm not sure that it does terribly much, but what does it mean? Well, it's sort of like an X-wing, because we can see that if this is a 5, this cannot be a 5, so this will be a 5. If, on the other hand, this is the 5, this won't be a 5, this will be a 5. So we now know, sorry about this, we now know that any cell that can see both this cell and this cell cannot contain a 5. So are there any cells that are obviously of that quality? Well, one cell would be this cell, but we already knew there wasn't a 5 there because of this 5 here. The other two cells are these two. So we need, I think, to look at these two cells now and ask ourselves, does it matter that there is no 5 in either of these two cells? So you can see in terms of the row, we now need to place the numbers. Oh, this is brilliant. This just works, doesn't it? Because we don't have a 9 and an 8. So what are the possibilities for these two cells? 1, 5, 6, 1, 5, 6, but we've just said we can eliminate the 5 from both of these squares. So there we go. There is a 1-6 pair in this top row. Now that must be helpful. Let's have a look. Well, the most obvious thing we can see is that we have a 5 here and a 5 here. So where can the 5 now go in row 1? Only in this square here. So that means that this square cannot be a 5. Let's eliminate this. And everything is going to really flow now because, well, firstly we know that the X-wing is going to unwind, but we also know a lot about the skyscraper, so the 5s are suddenly going to become absolutely finished essentially in this puzzle. I'm just going to add the 8-9 pair at the edge there, just to remind myself of that. But this 5 means this can't be a 5. So if this isn't a 5, we know from our earlier work this must be the 5, because there's only 2 places a 5 could go. Now if that's a 5, we know this is a 5 over here. Therefore this must be the 9 on the other side. That's all absolutely forced. We can pencil mark some 9s down there, look. Now the 9s unwind because we can't. Where can a 9 go in this 3x3 block? 9, 9. This 9 here means it's forced upwards. This has to be a 9. Therefore we know that's an 8 from the work we did earlier. Oh, we've got an 8-6 pair. I was missing that. So we've got a 6-8 pair. So that means this square must be an 8. That's the only place an 8 can go. And now we have 1 and 3 to place in these two positions. So let's just highlight that. 8, 8. Going down the column, we've got to place 2, 5, and 7. So this has to be a 7. And it may actually be that we've cracked the puzzle now. So very efficient solve actually, and really quite a nice one. 3s, 6s and 4s down here. All I'm doing here is just pencil marking the obvious numbers, obviously. Let's take advantage of what we've got. And now let's have a look. Where are 1? This one here. And this one here. So in fact that's easier, even easier than I thought. This must be a 1. Therefore this is a 1. This is a 3. This is a 3. Therefore this must be a 5. Which I think we could have seen earlier from the skyscraper. We need to still place a 5 and a 7 along row 2. So this 5 here means this can't be a 5. That's got to be a 5 and 7 like that. This 5 unwinds. Oops. Would I could point the cursor in the right place. That means this must be in this order. That unwinds the 1 and the 6. And I'm struggling to believe this puzzle has anything more left to protect itself. So I'll leave this as an exercise to you guys to finish it off from here if you're interested in doing that sort of thing. But I think there was quite a lot of interesting stuff in a relatively short solve today. So I hope you got something out of it. Do let us know in the comments if you enjoy the videos. It helps guide us in terms of what we should be producing. And thanks very much for watching. As I say, if you do enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that. And we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.